Hi, my name's Keith Cooper of Northlight Images, and in this video I'm going to have a look at alignment checks. Something that people may try when they first set up the printer but generally never think of again. It's one of those things that can actually help keep your printer in good condition and producing good quality prints. Now what I'm going to have a look at is about the actual process of doing alignment. Now this will vary for every printer, so I'm not going to give details, precise step-by-step details. That's in the manual, or it's a simple thing when you set things up as well. But what I'm going to have a look at is how often to do it. In doing it, what should you get out of it? And different printers, is it worth doing at all? And so I'll come back to the timings, but first some examples of it from different printers. This one here is the Epson 8500, same for the Epson 8550. An alignment check is something that the printer does. It prints a pattern, and that pattern that it's printing is how it looks is very specifically governed by how well aligned and set up the print head is. Now if you've got a printer, well, like one of the Canon HP printers, when you actually change print heads, and when you set up Canon printers you install the print head from scratch, the printer needs to do an alignment check right at the start. That's part of the setup for those printers, and it's something you can't ignore. It actually forces you to do. But with the Epson one, the pattern, and this is the 8550, this is the pattern on the P700 or P900, don't remember which one, it's the same. These patterns, you have to print them out and you have to look at them. And you have to decide which amongst a set of different patterns is the most even or something like that. It's actually quite tricky. Now, I'll come back to some more details of it in a moment, with some specifics here. But in general, you run one of these tests, you put some numbers in. The Canon version, the Canon print head, has a detector that allows it to automate this process. Now, in terms of the paper used for it, use the paper it suggests using. Now, I used on the P900 setup here, I used a dull photo paper. That was purely because on the Epson papers, the patterns can be quite difficult to see. And by using that photo paper, it's just that little bit sharper. If you're going to use plain paper, don't use a cheap copier paper where the ink might run a bit. Use a better quality type of copier paper or plain paper where you'll be able to see details of the pattern. They all work similar ways. As I say, a pattern is printed, and that pattern is measured either by you or by some part of the printer, and it adjusts timings. Now, when you think of how an inkjet printer works, the print head's flying backwards and forwards at quite some speed. It's firing out millions of ink droplets. The positioning of those ink droplets has to be extremely precise. This is why it used to be said for printers, if you wanted better quality, it was far better to just print in unidirectional mode, so the printer printed while the head went one direction, the head went back, paper moved, and it printed again. Modern printers tend to be much more solidly designed and built. The tolerances are better, so that you don't get the benefits of bidirectional versus unidirectional printing quite so obviously. However, if you find that you're getting slight banding on your prints, this is one of the things that's suggested to fix it, and there are different options in every printer, so I can't go into details here, but yeah, it's covered in the manual. And if you find that you're getting a slight banding, try switching to unidirectional printing. Now, every so often a printer works better with unidirectional. Does mean you're printing slightly slower, but if it's visible banding, it may well be one way of addressing that. So you've done this during setup, and it's a standard part. Look at any of my printer reviews and I'll mention in the setup process this. In fact, these pictures here are taken from different printer reviews I've done where I've looked at different aspects of it. So I've done that. Is it a do once and forget process? No, ideally. If you're worried about and concerned about printer quality, and most people I know who read my reviews are because they're interested in getting high quality prints, you may need to do this process again. How should I do it again? First all up though, this test sheet that you've produced when you've set the printer up, file it away in a desk drawer somewhere, keep it. Why keep a print like this? And in this instance here with the Epson one, where you have to enter numbers into the front panel of the printer, write on the print what your settings were, what numbers you put. Now this Epson one, you may need a magnifying glass, or like me, put a second pair of glasses on to be able to see the fine detail, to be able to do this. Don't expect necessarily for it to be really obvious which number to pick. It's not like you look at the line of patterns here and you go, oh yeah, that's the one. Now, it may be, but you may get one where one looks okay, one on one side looks a little worse, one on the other side looks like you're trying to judge where the best position is. This is not a precision process, so don't get too hung up about getting the precise values. Have a look at it. Look at it in bright light as well. Bright light will help for you to be able to see the detail, but use by whatever optical assistance you feel you need for it, and that will help you get these numbers set up. So I said save that piece of paper because you're going to do this again. Now, how often do I do a check like this? Well, if I start seeing problems such as banding or something like that, first of all, I'll do a nozzle check. Now, the nozzle check will tell me that all the nozzles are firing, because if I've got just one nozzle not firing, that can lead to an impression of banding. You just get obviously a light line on it across the print where a particular nozzle is not firing. Now, the printers are designed to try and hide that because occasionally nozzles fail for a short period and then come back again. But if you see prominent banding, look at first a nozzle check to make sure things are working, and then run this process for your printer, usually from the screen menu of it. You can sometimes do it from the driver on your computer or whatever, but you can usually find it, as I say, in the maintenance menu or something like that on your printer. That's if you've got a fault. What about if your printer is working well? Well, large format printers, I'll do this every 6 months or so just to keep them as part of my ongoing maintenance process. But large format printers tend to have built-in measurement devices which allow them to actually automate some of this process here. I would, with a new printer, if I've used it occasionally, I would, after a few months, repeat this. If the results are essentially the same, great. Your printer is stable, it's settled in. Remember, printers don't like being bounced around and moved. If you cart your printer about a lot and move it, you're likely to have to do this more often. But if I've done it after a few months and there's no real difference, I'll keep that sheet once again, but I'll make notes on it, and I'll put a note and put the date on it as well, because these sheets don't always include the date like nozzle checks do. Keep that, and maybe I'll have another look after a year, or if there's a fault. Now, is that hard and fast? No, it will vary from printer to printer. I have no way of knowing which printers definitely need this adjustment and check often, and which ones never do. The P5000 I've got here, I check this every year. It hasn't needed an adjustment for ages. It's rock solid. But then the thing is so heavy I can't lift it up. It would be similar, with, say, with a Canon Pro 1000, which is also another big hefty printer. So you've got this. It's basically keep your piece of paper, do it when you set the printer up, do it a few months later to see if there's been any change, and then make it an annual process. Just set a diary reminder or something like that. And when you've set that diary reminder, how about cleaning the inside of the printer as well? Now, I've done another video that looked at cleaning the foam pads and various things like that. Keep your printer clean. And that's especially so if you do much borderless printing, because the overspray, the ink spray will collect around things. But it should be a trivial operation. carry it out once a year. If your printer's working well and the second year you find you get the same results as the first one and you've never had any problems with a printer, well, don't necessarily know that you might bother with the third, fourth, fifth years. But if you change the print head or do anything major, move the printer about, particularly if it gets banged or jolted in any way, run this check. It's a bit more trouble than the nozzle check. So the nozzle check, I say, yeah, do that regularly. This one, do it a bit more sparingly. Now, I hope that's clear and doesn't send people away in a panic. Do not worry if it changes a bit. Some printers may drift a little bit. If, say, after a couple of months you find it's drifted a little bit, great. Try it again after a couple of months. If it's drifted a bit more, how are the prints looking? Remember that one of the things you get with cheaper printers is a much less substantial build quality. Big hefty printers like this, even the Pro 200 or 300, which are quite hefty as well, will tend to be much more solid and reliable. But anyway, if you've got any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Please do pass this on to anyone you think might find it of use who does any printing, and thanks for watching.